Hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. I'm so thrilled to have you listening in today. Today, I am going to be introducing you to Kim Troy, who is the founder and CEO of Civilis Consulting, a business growth consultancy providing strategic sales and marketing, operations, HR guidance to fast growth businesses. So we're going to be talking all things business, which I absolutely love. Civilis is all of their seasoned consultants work alongside CEOs, entrepreneurs, and leadership teams to strategize and implement organizational-wide transformations. And they've got incredibly deep expertise advising companies with remote and geographical dispersed business units, which is so pertinent to today's current times where we are all working remote, even when we've been in the city. So I'm really looking forward to chatting to Kim today. So welcome to my show, Kim.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Fantastic. So tell me a little bit about where you are now. So who are you working with day to day, and actually what the impact of that has been in the last over COVID, when businesses have gone totally off site. They've now got remote workers. I know I'm going to tap in now later in our conversation of your work with people in Africa and others as well. But how has that actually impacted your business from in America where you are at the moment?
Yeah, interesting. So first of all, my own business has always been a remote virtual office type of business. So I started my company in 2010. Prior to that, I worked with my husband to start his company all the way back to 1999. And we have operated both of those businesses virtually since way back in the previous, century. So, that our expertise and what we bring to our clients on that remote and geographically dispersed, business model is something that we have our own very personal experience in. And then my corporate background, which is what I did even prior to starting my own business, was all about managing locations all over our country. So that said, when we got to this point where many of my clients now at Civilis Consulting found themselves in that same situation, suddenly we have to go into a completely different way of operating and thinking about our business. So it's been a transition and a process for everyone, but we're just well positioned to be able to help them through that.
You were so well positioned, and how fortunate for you that when you've already been, you were ahead of the times, right? Actually. I know. So you're the dream business that you go, you know what? We actually did it that way before. And when anyone else is struggling, going, oh my gosh, how do I actually have teams offsite? How do we keep that team culture, that productivity, our ability to just really, stay on strategy and get those results while we're worrying about COVID ourselves, while we're juggling homeschooling for children, while we've got partners having different situations and everything's going crazy. That was just so fortunate. So what made you actually think, I'll work with remote people sort of earlier on? What made you get ahead of the times? Why did you know that this would be what people will need in the future?
Yeah, well, first of all, we learned a lot, again, kind of, operating our own business that way, about the advantages to that. Now, it's not all, sunshine and roses. It's definitely, there's certainly challenges to that. But we learned early on that when we could offer that kind of environment, whether it's fully remote or some kind of hybrid environment where they can come in and be part of a team, or work from home for a part of the time, or work in another part of the world if they want to, we learned that we could attract more people. We could pull from a much larger pool of talent than we could if we were just constrained to our own geographical commuting distance. So that was a big advantage that we learned early on, and it enabled us to, again, really get some of the best people, whatever those subject matter experts were, or whatever that specialty was that we were looking for, we were able to attract them. And then the other thing that we learned in the process was that you have to manage those people differently than you would if you were right there with them.
Yes.
And it's definitely more challenging for them to feel part of a team, for them to feel part of a distinct culture, in the company when they may be working from their, a spare bedroom or from a coffee shop or, somewhere else on the road. So there's extra work that you have to go and do if you're managing those people to keep them engaged and keep them feeling like part of something much bigger than just literally what's within their four walls.
Yeah. Yeah, very well said. And I know for my business, one of my businesses, I during COVID, I had a morning Zoom, and we called it Care and Share, and it was actually just to make sure everyone was up. It's 9 o'clock. We're all happening. We're all chatting about things that you would do at the office. It might not be all business related. We'd finish with setting the day up, but we'd actually. A lot of it was, what did you watch on Netflix last night or this or that, but it actually does add incredible value, and people felt really connected by doing that. And I'm sure a few of them were sort of dragged out, and we had a bit of a giggle. What are you wearing from waist down? Probably pajama pants. But it was important. And I wonder, but now that we've actually gone back into most workplaces, or we've got a more hybrid situation, you must be finding in your business that, the onboarding of new recruits, that's going to be quite huge, because they're now coming into an environment that they don't know those people, and they're not going into the office as much as they were. Or we've got a whole new world that many people will never go to an office.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what we're really seeing, and I'm sure this isn't just unique to, to where we are, or even unique to my particular clients, but what we're seeing is that in those situations where people are being asked to come back into an office situation, we have to really think about what is going to entice them to come back, because now they have different choices than they might have in the past. And so it's not the same as it's just all changed. It's not the same as what it was before. So we really have to think about why we're bringing them back, and make it worth their while, and make them actually benefit from being back in that environment more so than they could if they were just doing their work at home. So we have to be very thoughtful about who we bring back, why we're bringing them back, and when we do bring them back, what are we doing with them so that they feel engaged and they feel like they're getting something because they are there that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And it's different for different companies, but we still have to be very thoughtful about that. And in some cases, we can't make a good case for them coming back, and so we have to figure out how to keep them in our company if we want them, and we need them, in our business. We have to really think about, okay, how do we keep them engaged with the business and still allow them to work from home? So we have to put a lot of policies in place, and we've had to do a lot of retraining of our managers and our leaders to think about how they communicate and manage those people, because they can't do it the way that they used to. So they have to be a lot more thoughtful and a lot more engaging in the way that they communicate. And like you said, right, like you might have to intentionally do some things to create some of those moments that you would otherwise get at the, in the break room or on your way to the bathroom or something. Those are those moments where people get to connect as just regular old human beings, not just as a worker there to just kind of, get my job done. And so we have to think about how can we recreate those moments in an authentic way, a way that doesn't feel weird or creepy, but at the same time, allow that kind of human to human interaction so that we still feel like we're working with other human beings.
Put the humanity back into human resources. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I know. It's
Yeah,
crazy, isn't it? I love the way you've articulated that because it is such a shift. You know, I spent most of my career, you have to go into the city 5 days a week. You've got to be at that seat 9 till 5. And, you know, and I raised 5 children around that. And so, you know, all of the commute time, the cost of commuting, because of the time it often then resulted in before or after school care for working mums. And, you know, and you've got all these factors that were just part of adult working life, right? And we all
right,
just sucked it up because there wasn't any, as if you could not do that, you would not get that
right.
job.
Yeah,
Now the whole world's changed. It's kind of like, and I've had that with staff too. It's kind of like going, well, I don't, now I know the cost saving, although COVID was obviously very, very challenging and traumatic in many ways. But also now I know that if I can work from home, I save that time, I save that childcare, I have more flexibility. I don't, you know, so now you've actually got to, as you said, tell me, why do I need to really be there? You know, and that's just kind
right,
of like from the employer perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, I've now actually feel like I've got to entertain my staff. You know, like
right.
I've got to
A
woo
little
them.
bit.
It's actually really important to be here, whereas your staff are
Mhm.
confidently saying, well, if I've been as productive without coming in, why do I now have to wear that
Right.
expense and inconvenience? That's a huge shift, which you must be just seeing rippling through every company that you work with, just going,
Completely.
what are we going to actually do with this
Yeah,
new massive challenge, right? Because
yeah,
those same people, I'm imagining, are getting wooed by all these other companies who are now going,
sure.
well, what's the lolly, if you like,
Yeah.
to go to
Yes.
them?
Yes, exactly. And we really have to do that. I mean, again, we don't have a choice. It's our new reality that, you know, as employers that we're in now. So we have to rethink it because if we don't, we won't be able to attract people. A lot of my clients are manufacturers, and so they have to have people there to, you know, literally make,
Yeah.
make whatever it is that they're making. Um, and they're, you know, extremely challenged because all of those folks are evaluating other opportunities that are, you know, maybe pay the same or maybe require a similar skill set, and they have, you know, if they can do that, whatever they can do from home and don't have to come on site, then they've got to be, you know, I mean, our manufacturing clients now have to be much more compelling. Like I said, we have to create an environment where those people want to spend their time. We have to, you know, we have to rethink about, you know, what our breaks look like, or even what our break rooms look like, or what, you know, what we allow them to do. If we want them to be allowed to have a more flexible schedule, like you said, you know, back in the day, we didn't have a choice. You had to, you know, work your personal life and your children's personal lives
Yeah.
around your work and around your career. So people don't have to do that anymore. And so how can we as employers be more flexible in allowing, you know, again, allowing people to have a more well-rounded and more well-balanced life? Because that's
Mm.
really what this was all about. I think it gave everybody an opportunity to really think about what's important and how they want to be spending their time. And, you know, we talk a lot about this great resignation. I think that's really what it is. It's not necessarily that people were resigning. They're working, but they're just working in a different way now than they've ever worked because they realize that there are other things that they can and could be doing with their time. So
Yeah.
that's again another, you know, another thing that we have to work through with my clients. Otherwise, you know, we can't, they won't be able to sustain their workforce.
So how hard is it to actually get those top talents? You know, those companies who are now looking for the top talent in a market that has just changed, and they're all getting enticed in such better ways than they've previously done. You know,
Mhm.
how is that impacting top executives and those that you're working? You know, how are they trying to differentiate themselves?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, so that's, you know, that's the $1 million question, literally, but that is happens to be something that we're good at, and it's something that we developed, you know, prior to this. But what it comes down to is really what it is about your company that is unique and teasing that out. And it isn't going to be a sign-on bonus. It's not going to be a candy wall or ping pong tables. It's going to be something else about, why are we here? What is the mission of our organization? What are we doing? If I'm coming in to manufacture ceiling tiles, for example, acoustical ceiling tiles, what impact does my work have on the greater, on the greater world and on humans? And so we talk a lot about, for example, with ceiling tiles, we talk a lot about that, these ceiling tiles go into places they go into schools, they go into hospitals, they go into places to make the environment more effective and more comfortable. So literally by manufacturing these acoustical tiles, you're allowing children to learn more, and you're allowing doctors and patients to have more effective and meaningful conversations with each other. And so we start to sort of draw the line between, okay, what is this day-to-day work like, and what is it actually doing when I put it out there into the world? And when people can start to feel like what they're doing makes a difference and matters, it's a lot more compelling to come there than to go to the place next door where they're just all about output and how fast can you work and how much can I get out of you and did you show up on time? And so those are the softer things that we do to start developing this narrative around what it means to work here at this particular company. And when we do that, it not only helps to attract the right kinds of employees, but it also helps attract customers as well. Yeah. When we start to position our companies in ways that, in a way that again isn't just about features and benefits, but is about the impact that our company is having on the world by virtue of what it is that we do or sell, then we can all think a little, it's easier for us to, our own people and our customers to filter themselves in and out.
Amazing. Your background, you've done quite a lot of work with NGOs in Southern Africa. How is it, what have you taken from your background and your expertise working in such a different environment to then apply to what your company does in a modern context?
Yeah. So my work there with these NGOs, they were primarily all conservation organizations in the field. They were working in some really, operating in some very remote areas of Southern Africa, in Namibia, Botswana, South Africa. And they, their conditions are pretty rustic, to say the least. And one of the things that I learned in that environment, my work was to go there and work on them on organizational development and building capacity organizationally so that they could continue to grow. The boards here in the U.S. would pay me to go there and make sure that they were utilizing their human and their capital resources more effectively. So that was what I was there to do. But in the process of doing so, I was living, in those same rustic, circumstances. And it's really interesting, how we, in our first world environment where resources are quite plentiful, relatively speaking, we tend to not really, we tend to think that things are more dire than they actually really are. We go through the day, or we go through the week or the month, and busy ourselves and worry ourselves with things that seem extremely critically important. So when I find myself over in that environment where we're living and working out in a very remote situation where we might run out of water, our well runs dry, and it regularly would do that. And so what do we do about that? How do we, as a team, as a group of multicultural people from all over the world coming to work together on this one, in this one organization, how do we work together to cope to adapt, to to come up with some innovative solution for us to be able to get water back onto the site, or food, or whatever the case may be. We would we regularly would have situations where we'd have to go out and rescue an animal that was in distress, or we'd need to, our limited vehicles would break down out literally in the middle of nowhere, and you don't just call AAA or the tow truck and have them come and get, just retrieve you. So there were just so many circumstances like that we found ourselves in the course of just doing our work, that really forces you to build new resilience muscles, muscles that that you really don't have to exercise as much. Clearly, I think what happened with COVID forced all of us to have to do that, and so in some ways, maybe there was some silver lining there. But learning that resilience is something out there in those very remote situations, that because it really is life or death in many, a lot of times. And so that was certainly a big takeaway for me. And the other thing too was the truly what diversity and inclusion means. Again, in our environment, we hear a lot about that these days, and about how we need to have a more diverse organizations, or a more inclusive work culture. It's true, we do. But when you're in a situation like that, you truly learn the value of that. You learn why it's important. Sure, it's challenging in many cases. I mean, again, these were people coming from all over the world to work on a project, that has a mission to save a species. So It's a big mission. People are there, very passionate about it. They all have very strong opinions, their point of view, and how they all come together to be, to work together for that common good. If you didn't have that diverse environment, and if you didn't truly have an inclusive culture, you wouldn't be able to accomplish your work. You wouldn't be able to accomplish your mission. So working in that environment gave me a true appreciation for what it means to to have all of these wonderful, and who knows, right? Who knows who's the guy or the gal that knows how to fix the truck that just broke down? That might not be in their job description, but somebody's got to do it. And you look around and say, okay, what do you know? What do you know? How can we all come together to make this work so that we can, get back out on the road? So
I love what you've shared, and I've enjoyed that over my life of just going into different aid trips and things. We've done them in Nepal and whereas Thailand as well, and through a couple of businesses that we've done. And we've also taken our children, because that's it. It's often the random thing. Suddenly someone speaks a different language. Someone suddenly has had this major experience in one, area that is unpredictable, completely unrelated to the role that they're having. And I love that's right, the breadth of team and culture, and that's right, diversity that it brings, and how rich that is. I also love that it's kind of like a game of Survivor, right? You suddenly, when things go bad or challenging, which they will often more in a third world situation, then you actually do rely on the team more. It's like, so you build resilience because things go wrong all the time, but you also tap into elements of the team that you all need to be there to actually do the job. In corporate America and other situations, like, your infrastructure is all great. I just need to do the job and be there with the team. And I'm assuming the mechanics work. But when the mechanics don't work, such as, you're got to go somewhere and there's been a landslide and you actually can't get there, or, that's right, there's no water, or something's actually preventing the actual outcome to happen, you're then going to really learn about, the team skills, the team building, the culture, who teams up and who criticizes, who has got a short fuse, or who actually goes, no, come on guys, we can do this, or those creative minds. I absolutely love all of that. They end up loving the result more. That
Yeah.
that feeling when you're all in. We're all in for, it's not just a company. We've all soldiered on through a time, a challenge, and
Yeah,
it definitely brings out the best in a team.
it
Not that we
does.
always be going through adversity, but when you have those moments, it's certainly golden, isn't it?
It is. And it's interesting because we were, once you're out there, you're out there. I mean, no, you can't just say, okay, I quit, I'm going to go home now and not deal with this anymore. And so, we would, I would work there for, 2, 3, 4 months at a time. So I would be there over a pretty long period of time, and we would have lots of other, volunteers or various folks come in to participate in this project, for varying lengths of time. And it was interesting to watch how some people, adapted and how some people had a much harder time adapting to that. But, when you're immersed in it and you literally have nowhere else to go, you don't have a choice. You either, your survival,
Yeah.
depends on your ability to figure it out and figure out how I'm going to be part of this team. I can't just, take my toys and go home. I have to, I have to stay here and be part of this, So
If I want to have dinner tonight, I better team up, because there's going to be repercussions.
right. I mean, right. And so it is, and I think, for those folks, I personally had a maybe an easier time of it. I had my own adjustment periods as well, but everybody has that. But when you finally get into it and sort of, I guess, maybe, surrender to the circumstances and realize that I can't control this craziness that I'm living in is completely outside of my control. And when you finally surrender to that and realize how little you really do have control over, there is something very liberating, and frankly, it makes us much more innovative when we get to that point. So that, I think that was something that was really, it was just a great thing to see and to experience over and over again. And again, bringing that back home and bringing that back to what we've all been through with COVID and with the pandemic. Clearly, it threw all of us, into a bit of a tailspin. But now we've figured it out. We've come out. We've survived, and hopefully our businesses are still intact. They might look very different than they did going into that, but that in and of itself is a true testament to our resilience. So we all need to pat ourselves on the back for that.
Absolutely. So in your consultancy business, you obviously are wanting to work with companies, businesses, CEOs to have that exponential growth, to be able to scale in this modern environment. How do you prepare teams in a new landscape, if you like, these teams who are working remote everywhere? Things have changed. We're actually having hard financial sort of times because people have really suffered and businesses have closed. How does your company really add value to those big companies to actually go, you know what, we want to still dream, we want to be strategic, we want to dream big, we do expect major outcomes.
Right.
This is how we're going to champion together to make that exponential growth happen. What sort of strategies, how do you work specifically with companies to do that?
Yeah. So right. So how we work with them is we come in and we evaluate what it is that they're currently doing, and we look for ways for them to be able to do it more efficiently and effectively. So usually whatever it is that we put together strategically, and again, it can be, it can be on client acquisition side or talent acquisition, or it can be around just their operating environment and how it is that they operate their business. But we evaluate what they're currently doing, and we find those opportunities for them to be able to save money, but more so, it's not about saving money, it's about using their resources more effectively. So typically they end up, we kind of pay for ourselves in that way, in that we're able to kind of get things going on the right track. And then once we're done and once we're over, they're set up to continue to go on. So usually a company comes to us when they're having some kind of impediment or some kind of limitation to their growth. Right now, a lot of times it's because they can't hire people, or they can't hire enough of the right people or keep them on board, or they've had maybe a big leadership change for whatever reason, and they're struggling, with their new model. We have had customers or clients come to us during this time, challenged with their with supply chain issues, and how they're, what do I do now? What do I make? How do I deliver it?
Yeah.
So those are the types of sort of engagements that we look for. But it's when a company is having this, sort of I don't want to say unknown because they know about it, but an unsolvable or a seeming inability to be able to move past a certain level that the organization has reached. And that's what our team is particularly good at doing, is really, diving in and really understanding, okay, where are the efficiencies, that we could realize here, and then how do we implement those? How do we actually put them into place, and how we get people set up to be able to take that forward?
Fantastic. And I can feel your love and joy for what you do. In your voice, I just absolutely love someone who's just so passionate about what they do. And that's it. They might know it or they might not, So I think coming in with that expertise, being able to actually, unpack a business, or to be able to see it from a different perspective, it can be, that's worth gold, because often when you've been working in a certain way, you reach that stage that you've just got a block, or it's not working, but you don't know what to change, or you don't know how to change it, or you don't know, you're not willing to have the risk of, well, what if I change things and people don't like it? There's so many elements which will be sort of fear and self-protective sort of based, I'm assuming, that, you'll do in a very controlled way, that, you're actually, nothing's, wrong. It's just that we can do it better. And that's
exactly
right. So if we can get rid of waste and we can be more efficient, then that's great. And so you go for the easy wins, but often it might be something else that that they haven't put their finger on, that when you've done certain things, it might be actually just to bring the team members in, that they all actually participate more in the in the strategy, or that they feel that they're more loved, or that they have appreciation of different roles and all that sort of thing. I love it. I love it when you go in and look holistically at a company.
And the answers are always there within the team. I mean, the answers are always there. It's just our job to, to tease them out, and to be able to, to get to the kernel of what it is that, like I said, that really is unique and special and different. And once we do that, then it's then we can sort of, take them down that, this new, enlightened path. And that's where that's where the growth gets going again.
So what have you learned most about yourself as a successful woman, a woman running a company? You've got a breadth of experience. You're at the top of your career. What have you learned about yourself personally? Not what you do for others, but what have you learned in your own journey that says, this is why I feel that I am successful? Why do you own that? What have you learned along the way that maybe even surprised you about yourself?
That's a good question. Oh gosh. First of all, what I learned early on, I had a mentor early on. I was fortunate to have some really great individuals kind of take me under their wing over the years. And one of the things I learned early on is to not, to control what I can, to affect what I can, and then let the rest go. And I will admit that I even today, 40 years or so, into my career, I've had to still remind myself from time to time, that there's just only so much that I can affect and that I can impact. And what I've learned over the years is that I can handle just about anything that comes my way. So I don't have to try to control my environment, because I will be able to appropriately respond to whatever it is that does happen, when it happens. And until then, I need to use that energy for something that's more productive. So that's something that I learned. And I think that's just as a person. I don't know if that's necessarily a female trait, but that is something that has served me well over the years. Another thing too for me as a woman is, I spent many, many years second guessing myself, feeling like there must be something that everybody knows that I don't, or that if something goes wrong, it must have been because I didn't do something right, or because I should have done something differently. So I've spent, too many years, putting myself under, unduly under more scrutiny than is necessary. I've learned, and again, I think it's maybe just come from experience and just from years under my belt, that, that I'm really, really good at what I do. And I don't have to make excuses for that. I don't have to justify that. I don't have to feel sheepish about that. I just am. And I'm not good at a lot of other things, and I'm not going to try to be, but I am really good at what I do, and I love it. And once I can say that and not feel embarrassed about it, and and kind of proclaim it, suddenly, it's very liberating. And now I get to spend that energy putting it into the thing that I'm passionate about, instead of putting it back on myself and making myself feel somehow, like somehow I'm inadequate, or I'm not quite, what I should be or what I need to be. And I think that might be a female trait. I'm not sure, but
it's definitely a female trait. Yeah, good to know. Good to know you're not alone there. That's right.
Yeah, I know. We're amazing human beings, and in many ways, I think we've got it going on a lot more so than our male counterparts. We just need to just accept it, own it, recognize it, and just lean into it. So
Brilliantly said, Kim. Exactly right. And that's what this podcast and all of my work with Women's Biz Tribe is all about, is actually saying, you know what, we've all got our area of genius, right? And you're going to develop and hone that over your business and life journey. And so to actually be proud of that, to celebrate that, to actually come at certain stages of your life and go, yeah, I'm good at this. This is my specialty. I'm this, Serena Williams is brilliant at tennis. Like, own it, you don't have to, as soon as you go, oh, well, I'm pretty good, there's so many other amazing people. That's respectful and lovely. But when you're in business and you're claiming that space, and you have to be, as a company, the differential, other people are choosing, other people will put themselves ahead. And it's actually a great thing. It's a necessary thing to be able to say, you know what, I believe you should pick me because, or my company, because of our experience, because of the way we do things, because we are the best in the biz, because of all these other reasons. And that's actually fantastic, because that's right. If I'm the consumer, I do want to work with the person, who is the most confident. I do want to go to the doctor who is the most skilled and actually is happy to tell me all their stats on why they're actually the best. Why wouldn't I? Why would I go to someone and go, oh yeah, I think I could do that for you? It's like, no, I want the best of the best. So I actually love, what you actually just shared there with the gems in this conversation, that it is challenging. It's hard to get to that stage, particularly as women who are generally taught more from a very young age to be very respectful of others and not to speak high above ourselves and all that. And we don't want to lose that. We certainly don't want to be arrogant and all those other qualities, but to actually go, you know what, that's right. I can speak highly about my skills and my attributes and the company that I work for, because I want you to be able to get the best, and this is actually my thing. I think that's such a win-win place to be.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on my program today. I have so enjoyed our conversation. I know those listening in, you can find Kim at civilisconsulting.com. When they go to your website, who is going to come to that website? What are they going to find when they reach out to you? If they're struggling in their companies at the moment, if they've reached a block, they're like going, you know what, I just know that we grew for a while and we've sort of stalled, or we've had that hiccup in COVID and we haven't just recalibrated. We know that we've got the goods. We're like the best kept secret. Why don't more people know about us? Those people, when they reach out to you, what will they find, Kim?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they'll find our website with the contact form and all of that, but they'll also find information about our consultants and what it is that, that we bring to their, to them and to our relationship with them. We also have a really robust blog that has a lot of articles about, in fact, there's a really great article about, that remote work environment and what to think about and what to consider when you're, when you're trying to build this, this hybrid working environment. So there's resources there. There's certainly ways to contact us. And of course, just information about what it is that we can do to help them.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, reach out to Kim if this is your issue today, and definitely listen to those gold nuggets shared. Start backing yourself, believing in yourself. Start, I love what you shared too about, just not worrying about the unnecessary. It does waste a lot of time and a lot of energy, and we all do it, and we all just go, it's suddenly, weeks to go by, or you just feel totally drained, and for things that haven't happened yet, or may not even happen, or even if they do, everything is solvable, right? So definitely get proactive about where you're wanting to move ahead, and reach out to women like Kim and myself if that's been a trouble, a real stumbling block for you, because there's definitely ways to power through there and to just level up to your next stage. Fantastic. Well, thanks for being on the show today.
It was great.